Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, an entitled neighbor hated my guard dog because she wants to trespass on my property with her kids. She claimed that my dog is a monster and tried to poison him. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. Before we get into the story, I would like to tell you a little bit about myself and my dog. I live alone, and for safety I wanted to get a dog to both help protect me and be a companion. He is a German Shepherd mix, and while he can come inside anytime he likes, he enjoys being outside in the backyard. He is totally fenced in, and while he has a big bark, he really is not a danger to anybody. He is just like a loud alarm that lets me know somebody's at the gate and I need to come and do something about it. Before I got my dog, I was already having issues with my neighbor, who for anonymity reasons I will just call Karen. She seemed to think that since she had kids, she was entitled to come onto my property and use my pool whenever she wants without asking. I did not feel comfortable with it, especially when she would try and send her children by themselves to jump my fence and go into my pool. I got my dog during the end of the colder months, so she was fully grown and trained by the time it was nice enough outside to go swimming again. Either way, I did not want to get in a fight, so I got a sign that said, "Warning, guard dog." I thought it would be enough to deter anybody from trying to come in. I was wrong though, and one day I heard my dog going ballistic and ran outside to see what the problem was. As it turns out, Karen had gotten halfway over my fence and the dog was going crazy, sensing an intruder. He was not attacking or anything, just barking and jumping because he knows that they shouldn't have been doing that. The children were crying between the dog's loud barks and their own mother screaming at me. I calmed my dog down enough to have a conversation with her in my front yard. Me? I told you before that you cannot just jump over my fence to use my pool. That's trespassing. Karen, you cannot tell me what I can and cannot do until you're trying to raise a bunch of kids on your own. How dare you leave that beast outside to try and kill us? Me? I have a sign right there that states I have a guard dog. He did his job by stopping you, and I hope that you take this as a lesson. Stay off of my property or I promise that my dog is gonna be the least of your problems. Karen, monsters like that are not allowed, and I'm gonna make sure that he's getting rid of. I heard about a week later from an animal control agency that I had supposedly some sort of wild animal living in my backyard that my neighbor complained about. I introduced him to my dog who, since the man was invited, was wagging his tail and licking him. I explained that Karen got upset when my dog stopped her from trespassing and nothing bad came of it. It was noted in the file that Karen lied and my dog was trained, well cared for and not a danger to anybody. Karen, of course, was furious about this and decided she was going to try and get some kind of sick revenge on me. I obviously didn't know when she did it, but my dog started acting very sick out of nowhere. So I took him to the vet and they found traces of some sort of poison in his system. I was scared that he was gonna die, but they told me I got him there fast enough that they could try and pump his stomach and give him something to try and neutralize the poison. He still would not feel great for a few days, but he probably would come out of it alright. I have cameras that I installed for the outside of my house that I actually never use. I decided to go through them though to see if I could find where in the yard he managed to ingest poison so I could do something about it for the future. Instead though, what I saw was Karen at my gate feeding something to my dog. It was some kind of weird powder from a bag that she mixed with water and he happily drank it. I was furious and could not believe that Karen actually tried to kill my dog so that she could use my pool with her kids and trespass on my property. I was not gonna give her any mercy, and as soon as my dog was feeling better, I took the tape and vet report to a lawyer to see if anything could be done. He said that I had a pretty strong case since she has trespassed before and made the false claim to animal control about my dog. I filed the lawsuit and the only thing left to do was wait. I was super observant of my dog at that point and did not let him outside anymore without me watching him in person or on the cameras. I absolutely had no idea if Karen was gonna try again, but I was not gonna take any chances. When we got to court, I expected some kind of fight out of Karen that the video was wrong and she did not do anything. Or maybe even that it was not her and that I poisoned my own dog to try to frame it on her. I wanted to be prepared for anything, but I was not ready for what happened. I told my story to the judge, and when he asked Karen if anything I said was a lie, she said that I had the story completely right. I think even the judge was shocked. The judge said, "So just to clarify what I have here, you were not able to trespass on her land to use the pool, so you tried to poison her dog." Karen: "Yes, that beast was horrible and needed to be put down. The animal control refused, so I had to take it into my own hands for the safety of my children. They have the right to swim, and he would have hurt them if we went over the fence." Judge: "So your kids don't have the right to swim if the pool is on private property and the owner told you no? The dog has never had a violent incident and the owner of the property has him fenced in with a sign to keep you out because there is a guard dog. What you did was criminal animal abuse. You're lucky that OP is not suing you for all these counts of trespassing." And finally, Karen was forced to pay my entire vet bill, which for you animal owners know it's not always cheap. A stomach pumping, blood work scans and IV medicine can add up quickly. Karen of course was furious that she was gonna be forced to pay the medical bills for the animal that she wanted dead the entire time. She was also ordered to keep away from both my property and my dog, or I could sue her again for trying to come and finish the job. That was not all though, because where I live, animal abuse is a criminal and arrestable offense. She did not end up actually doing jail time, but the news of her went all over the neighborhood. Whatever reputation she had before was gone, and instead she was just known as the woman that tried to poison dogs. Everybody hated her, and instead of jail time, she was forced to complete community service. The judge thought it was fair that she volunteers at an animal shelter and spends time with the creatures that she decided were evil. My dog is now healthy and back to being the best guard dog a woman could ever wish for. Maybe next year I will teach him how to swim in the pool with me, he more than deserves it. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would certainly agree, this dog definitely deserves to swim in the pool more than Karen. However, I gotta say I'm not sure how happy I am about Karen working at an animal shelter. I'm not sure if I could trust her. Anyway, if you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to like the video because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much. The next one is titled Revenge with the Car. So one weekend I drove back to my hometown for an old high school friend's wedding. I arrived on Friday expecting to be a home buddy at my parents until the wedding rolled around on Sunday. As I am unpacking, I get a text from Clarissa, another old friend who was invited to the wedding. Now, I had not seen Clarissa since her high school graduation party, but we had been as close as two girls can be in a small town. In later years, Clarissa had run with a more wild group, meaning that she openly smoked weed and had unprotected intercourse, but I still missed her and responded eagerly. Yes, I was in town. And yes, I would love to hang out, and no, I'm not dating insert ex-boyfriend's name anymore. Actually, I'm having a really hard time dealing with our recent breakup. Clarissa says that's too bad, but she is hanging out with a close guy friend at his apartment right now and thinks we would hit it off. Did I want to mix some drinks with them and crash on the couch with her? Sure, sounds like great fun. So then I drive to the address she texts me and she tracks me down outside and jumps into the passenger seat. After some "you look great, I've missed you" talk, I drive us around to look for parking. The problem is, we are on a very busy downtown street and there are no spots left. The only parking I can find is reserved. But as I drive past them, Clarissa shrieks at me, "You just passed those spots!" When I point out that they are reserved, she gives me an eye-roll smile and says she parks her car there all the time, no one cares. And in the off chance I do get a ticket, she says her guy friend is loaded and will definitely pay it for me. I raise an eyebrow, but in the end I circle the block and park my crappy van where she suggested. After about an hour in the company of Clarissa and her guy friend, however, I start having some regrets. Turns out her idea of mixed drinks is tequila and Mountain Dew. I kid you not. Now, this guy friend of hers is nice looking and all, but he is not really my type. For one, he mixes tequila and Mountain Dew, but more than that, he dropped out of high school to work at Quicken Loans and seems to form most of his opinions from cracked articles. I start sucking down my tequila and Mountain Dew just to get through what is sure to be a god-awful night. Whenever Clarissa and I are alone in the kitchen or the balcony, where she smokes Quicken Loan cigarettes, she tells me to give him a chance. He's a real nice guy, much nicer than my ex anyway, and did she mention he's loaded? Apparently he made about 50k at Quicken Loans, which must have been a fortune to her. After another hour, we are watching reruns of Full House. It's definitely not love at first sight with Quicken Loans, but we are at least shooting the breeze, making jokes. I can tell he is into me, which is flattering since I've been a bit of a recluse since the breakup. Well, in the middle of an episode, Clarissa jumps up and asks Quicken Loans if he wants to do a tequila shot in the kitchen. She pointedly doesn't ask me, which is fine, I don't like tequila anyway, but after about 2 minutes I turn around to see them in an aggressive match of tonsil hockey in the middle of the kitchen. I just kind of look away, feeling shocked and even worse than before. I mean, I was not about to propose to Quicken Loans or anything, but Clarissa was either too trash to function or did not like him paying more attention to me than to her, or just both. So eventually they go off to Quicken Loans' bedroom and I have a little cry before falling asleep, feeling miserable and missing my ex-boyfriend worse than ever, especially as I hear moaning and groaning just a few feet away. The next morning I wake up on the couch alone at 11 AM. None of them seem to be awake yet, but damn if I'm waiting to say goodbye after that crappy night. As I get ready to leave though, I realize that Clarissa took my phone with her by mistake because we had the same phone. I knock on the bedroom door and hear rushed dressing sounds like they can somehow hide the fact that they randomly paired off to have intercourse all night. Clarissa emerges like nothing happened, not so much as an apology, and tracks down my phone. We say goodbye a little coldly from my end and plan to see each other at the wedding the next day. When I walk outside though, I see that my van has been towed. Not even a ticket, as Clarissa had mentioned, it's flat out gone. So I march back inside. Quicken Loans answers the door looking confused and I explain that my van has been towed and I need a ride to the impound lot. I don't mention the fact that Clarissa offered his money to pay for a ticket if I got one. At this point Clarissa herself emerges half naked. When she gets the gist of what's going on, she turns downright nasty and denies everything, laughing her ass off the entire time. She tells me I am being dramatic and should be grateful to her for even hanging out with me when I am such a wet blanket. While she is still talking, I just turn around and call a taxi to go get my car. As the taxi is driving, I start plotting my revenge. On the day of the wedding, I text Clarissa as if nothing happened. I make boring small talk, oh my god, what does her dress look like, etc. And when the time for the ceremony rolls around, I tell her I will meet her at the entrance to the athletic club, the ceremony taking place outside out back. Clarissa then happily agrees. Meanwhile, I take a side exit to the ceremony and arrive with plenty of time to spare. As time trickles away for the wedding to begin, Clarissa's texts start to sound panicked. Where are you? We are gonna be late. I don't bother responding. Because Clarissa has always needed a band of girls to chaperone her everywhere, the thought of entering on her own does not even seem to be an option. Eventually the ceremony begins and poor Clarissa does not even make it. Too embarrassed to walk in on the ceremony, she either stayed outside in the parking lot or hid out in the women's restroom. At the reception, Clarissa marches over to our table looking furious. Why didn't I show up? She missed the entire ceremony of our old friend's wedding because of me. So what do? I sip my champagne, laugh at her and tell her to stop being so dramatic. She then sits down and fumes her way through dinner, not talking to me, just making beelines to the open bar and texting on her phone the entire time, probably venting to Quicken Loans. When the bride and family come over to thank us for coming, she is just texting and chucking back drinks. For all intents and purposes, it looks like she skipped the ceremony to take advantage of free food and drinks and barely paid attention to anyone else for the entire night. The bride and her family even low-key snub her. But of course, Clarissa is so drunk by this point that she barely notices. To this day, I hear people badmouth her for being so rude and trashy whenever I come into town. I always have to purse my lips from revealing the full story. And the next one is titled Nice Small Revenge. This is super tiny petty revenge, but us measly workers at McDonald's can only do so much without getting into trouble. Yesterday, a young lady ordered 3 frozen Cokes and a soft serve cone. The new guy was taking her order and asked her to repeat herself because she spoke very quickly. Angered by his request, she spoke louder as she repeated her order and asked, "What, are you deaf?" And I could see the poor guy die inside a little bit. I stared at her as she punched in her order and said, "There's no need to be rude, ma'am," to which she responded with, "Just do your effing job," and then muttered more under her breath. I turned to grab drinks for another order while the new cat went to pour the frozen Coke. Alas, the frozen machine poured out liquid rather than ice, and he quietly lamented, "Oh no," and looked to me and sadly, "I don't want to deal with her." I smiled and handed him the drinks from my order. "I got this, don't worry." And quickly filled 3 large cups with frozen Coke Zero Sugar, then made the ice cream and gave the rude woman her order, wishing her a pleasant day. I only wish there was a way to make sugar-free soft serve for rude customers, but at least she got sugar-free frozen Coke. I hope it tasted off. I would like to add a little detail. While I was busy, the lady turned to another colleague who was trying to keep her from escalating her abuse to us and told him she would suck his balls. She even offered adult services. I don't know if that is part of the hypoglycemic attack or low blood sugar levels many of you have written about. However, that kind of struck me as sexual harassment or at the very least inappropriate behavior. I'm more than happy to admit that I'm a jerk for swapping the drinks. If this was a case of being in a diabetic low, then I would be the first to apologize. But if not, insert evil laugh here. However, considering that I've seen her around and she has been awful every time, well, I'm pretty sure she is just an a-hole, but hey, this is the internet. Just fire away. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would love to hear what you think about this story. Do you think that OP was the a-hole or not? Let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, I would very much appreciate it if you could also like the video, because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much. Neighbors robbed my home while I was 2,000 miles away. Before I get into the details of what happened to me, I want to give everyone reading a very important piece of advice. Security for your home is a must, especially if you are going far away or away for a long period of time. Please don't put blind trust in someone spotting a robbery and taking care of it for you. Okay, now that that is out of the way, let's get into what happened to me and caused me to have to make that announcement to everyone. I have read a bunch of these stories and know that when it comes to bad neighbors, things usually start out with saying how we have been in a feud or how they have been no good and nasty. This is going to be a little bit different though, because the couple that lived next door to us were extremely nice and friendly. Not only have we never had an issue with them before, but every time we crossed paths it would always be an incredibly nice conversation. Once they went away for the weekend and we were the ones they asked to collect their mail for them, so there were no red flags that I could see of what was going to happen with them. Honestly, if we were only going away for a few days, I probably would have asked them to get our mail as well, instead of having it stopped at the post office because we were going away for 2 weeks. We did ask them to just keep an eye on the place, which they agreed to. We were going 2,000 miles away, which for those who are bad with distances is almost across the entire United States of America. Or for people in Europe, roughly the distance from Spain to the Ukraine. Bottom line is that it was very far away. Now, with that kind of distance we were going to fly, so our car was left at the house tucked away in the driveway. We do have a garage, but it is small and currently filled with stuff, which is why the car was not put in there. It is a safe neighborhood though, and people do this all the time. What nobody knew though was that I had purchased a camera that keeps track of the front door, so we can see if anyone was leaving packages and whatnot. What we did not expect was an alert that someone was at the door, to then see both of the neighbors standing on our porch and picking the lock to the house. They got in and soon after were looting the place, which I saw from another camera we had in the house, and the outdoor camera even showed that they drove away in our car. I have no idea how they managed to do all of this in broad daylight with nobody saying so much as a word. I honestly had no idea what to do because I was so far away from home, but our place was being robbed and we could not do anything about it. At this point I was so mad that I could not think straight, and once my wife calmed me down, she told me that she called the local police for our area and told them what was going on. It was a little difficult communicating with them and getting them the footage of the robbery taking place, but with clear images of it being our neighbors doing it, we were hoping that they would get caught rather quickly. The footage was on our phones though, and there was no secure way to send it to them that would make it valid evidence. So we ended up leaving a few days early, and instead of going to our house we went straight to the station and spoke to the officers that we had been talking to over the phone up until then. From there we could finally show them the footage of the break-in and them driving away in our car. They were going to leave right away to arrest them, and we hitched a ride and could not wait to see the look on their faces that they were caught. Obviously, they tried denying it and telling the officers that they were in our house because we asked them to look after it. They thought someone called the cops because they were seen going in and wanted to pretend like they had a key. It was not until they saw me and my wife standing there that they knew that the story was not going to hold up. They did not understand why we were back so early, but they were insisting that we told them that they could borrow the car while we were away and they could borrow things from our house. They were saying that they had no proof anything was stolen and that none of it would hold up in court. I know that keeping it a secret would be better for the defense, but I could not help but pointing to my front door and telling the neighbors to smile for the camera. The husband looked terrified that we now had him on camera robbing us of our belongings. When it got to court and we all watched the video, the couple did not want to take this to trial because they knew they would have been caught. So they asked for the charges to be dropped if everything that they stole was returned or replaced. We knew that was all we would get if it went to trial anyway, so we agreed without having to go through all the hassle of fighting them for it. The car was luckily just being held at one of their friends' houses and was in the exact same condition that they took it in. The stuff from the house though was another story, because they had apparently gone and sold most of it. They took paintings of our walls and even sold my guitar. My wife's jewelry was taken and a few of my fancy ties. That stuff had to be negotiated on what the actual cost of some of the stuff was due to sentimental value, and they ended up having to give us a very big payout. It was about $30,000, and with that we were able to replace everything they had stolen from us. And probably a bit more. The only thing that could not be replaced was the trust and friendship that we had with them, because unfortunately they still are our neighbors. We have to deal with knowing that they are still living right next to us, and honestly, it feels a little eerie. Since they had no criminal history, they were let off with just some community service. They won't look us in the eye anymore, and that is fine by me, but we are a little worried about leaving again. We are thinking of getting a family member or close friend to house sit for us if we go away again, just in case neighbors feel like putting on an encore again. And ripe stars, isn't there the old idiom, opportunity makes a thief? In this case, this idiom would probably fit. However, if I was in OP's shoes, it would definitely be a weird feeling if I would still live next to these neighbors that essentially tried to rob me and actually successfully did it while I was away from home. If you would have such neighbors, what would you have done? Let us know in the comments.